Ladies and gentlemen, it's time again for Front Row Chaos. Yay! Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to Front Row Chaos. I am your host, Travis Smith, and today I have a special guest in the studio with me. It's one of my great friends. My good friend, Adam Mattos, is here today with me, and we're going to be going over some of our childhood memories, and mostly we're going to be talking about what we did back in the mid-'80s, and I think we're thinking 86, 87, where we filmed the Jackalope hunt. And if you haven't got a chance to see that Jackalope hunt, I suggest you get onto YouTube right now, well, actually after the broadcast, and find Cherokee Jackalope hunt. That's Cherokee Jackalope hunt. If you look at that, there are actually, when we put that on YouTube years and years and years ago, it made us break it up into two parts. So there's actually a part 1 and a part 2, and it's the entire movie. We made it, well, you'll see it's very low budget, but we did have a great time doing that, and we're going to be discussing that. So let me introduce my guest today. Adam Mattos, thank you for coming by to the studio.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me. I've always wanted to come speak with you on a microphone like this. I can't wait to see how this is going to go.
It's very a professional setup. Would you not agree?
Yes, I would not agree.
Well, hey, we're here today to discuss what we did, and just to kind of take you back to the mid-'80s, and I'm sure a lot of you know the mid-'80s, but we had a great time in the mid-'80s. We grew up in the mid-'80s, and the childhood that we experienced, I'm sure Adam can agree, was beyond compare as compared to today. And I'm not sure, I can't speak for the older generations, but our generation in the 80s, it was a phenomenal time to grow up, especially in our little town of Biggs, California. So many things for us to do, so many things for us to enjoy. And one day, I was always kind of into making a movie. And one day we were at Adam's house, and we were sitting there, me and Adam and Matt Brown. And if you don't know who Matt Brown is, that's fine, because we're going to tell you all about him. But he was a good friend of ours who passed away recently. And to take it a step further, we're going to dedicate this entire episode of Front Row Chaos to our good buddy Matt Brown. And I know Matt Brown is looking down on us and laughing about this episode that we're going to do together, and knowing that it is a quality episode that I hope you will enjoy as well as we do. But we have a passion, at least I did, for doing a film. And, you know, back in the 80s, you had great films, Rambo and E.T. and all these good ones that came out, right? My mom had I think it was called a Mini 8 or
Super 8, maybe?
Super 8, yeah. A Super 8 video camera. And for those of you who don't know my mom, she's not real careful with her electronics. So she liked to use things like that and then a lot of times drop them or whatever. And so I remember when we were using this recorder, this camera, we had to have duct tape to keep the door shut. The tape wouldn't pop out.
I think it was probably about 20 pounds, and it filled up your whole shoulder.
Yeah.
It was the big ones back when they first came
for
out.
those of you who don't know, back in the 80s, a lot of times it was a shoulder camera. All right, so we had this camera, and we were over at Adam's house, and I know me and Matt and Adam were sitting around, and we're just tossing around talking about whatever. And we decided, hey, why don't we shoot a jackalope hunt? We have this area just outside of Biggs that's called Cherokee, and it's a creek, and we spent a lot of our childhood out there. And so we thought, hey, let's go out there and let's film a jackalope hunt. Now, for those of you who don't know what a jackalope is, it really isn't a real thing. It's supposedly a jackrabbit that has horns, all right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, jackrabbit with horns, or we have jackrabbits here, but our plentiful crop out there at Cherokee was the cottontail rabbit. So we had to substitute the jackalope for the cottontail rabbit. And the cottontail rabbit looks like a jackrabbit. It just doesn't have as big of ears, and it's a little small little furry bunny. And we spent many a time out there getting cottontail and cooking them by the fire. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. Riding our bikes out. It's about 4 miles west of town. We'd ride our 10 speeds. We didn't even have mountain bikes then. 10 speeds out there with with a 22 on the handlebars and go out hunting and then eat our prey every time.
But first, we'd have to stop off at Green's Market to get some Bandicamp pork and beans to go with that cottontail. And ladies and gentlemen, cottontail rabbit, I know this is cliche, but it does taste like chicken, right?
It tastes like chicken.
It tastes like. And hey, when you get a cottontail rabbit, they're real cute and all, but when you get one, right? We had an old timer that showed us how to get the fur off of it real quick. You just right behind the nape of the neck or the top back of the neck, you just make a nice slit with your knife there, and you grab it, and you just peel off his whole skin like a coat, and then he's all skin, and you put him on a little stick, and you rotate him over that fire, and we had dinner.
For a 14-year-old, it was a perfect meal.
It was great. We just bring a little bit of barbecue sauce, slather it on there, roll them around a little bit, and next thing you know, we got dinner. So we decided to make this movie. We head out. First, we're at Adam's house on B Street here in Biggs, and Matt Brown lives right behind Adam. So it was really a convenient deal. And Matt, we told him what we thought we wanted to do, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be in it." He goes, "You know what? I don't want to be in it. I want to film it." And I'm like, "Perfect, right?" We're going to drive back a little bit, too, in the 80s. In the 80s, hunting films kind of came out by Eastman's and others. There was always two guys,
Bob and Dave,
that hunted together, it seemed like. And it was comical because it was like those cliche names, Bob, Dave, or whatever. And so we thought, let's do it like a hunting film. And this is kind of an attribute to Eastman, because I remember we would go to the DVD, or not DVD, but it's back. We'll go to the VHS store, Heritage Oak Video, and you could go there. It was right in Gridley, and you could rent a VHS player if you didn't have one, and you could rent the video right there. They had all the movies, just kind of like Blockbuster used to be, but it was VHS tapes. And I remember when these hunting movies would come out, Dad would get one, or Danny, my uncle, would get one, and we'd go to each other's house and we'd watch it. And it was really cool to actually see a hunting video, because that was a new thing back in the 80s. So we thought, hey, let's do it like that. But we want to kind of do this as a parody, not really a serious deal, because we both know jackalopes aren't real.
Fictional.
Or
Fictional
are
animal.
they?
Oh.
Well, if you watch the video, you might think twice. So we went ahead and decided to do this. Well, Adam is your uncle?
Great uncle, yeah.
Okay, he has a great uncle, and this guy in the video, you will howl when you see him and his expressions. At that time, how old was he?
Uncle Deke was over 90 at the time.
Over 90. I'm thinking he's pushing damn near 100 by the time we get to this.
By the end of the film.
But
No, he was quite old then, and just a never married, actual hobo, a real hobo. He used to ride trains.
Real one.
A real hobo.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something, but yeah, just a really philosophical type of guy. You could talk to any level. Very not educated, very smart though, very intelligent.
Oh, Adam would show me countless letters that he would write to politicians.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he'd write to papers, politicians. Deke, his name was Deke Dames. He was the kind of guy. He had a little Ford Courier, Wolfpack Ford Courier, if you know what those are, and they're a little pickup, and he wouldn't drive, I don't think, over 25, which is the speed limit for Biggs.
Oh, yeah. He would throw that sucker in fourth gear and lug it uptown at about 15.
And he would sit uptown at Green's Market. And Green's Market was right by Thornton's station, which is it was a 76 station back then. And he would sit there and he'd read his paper and he would spit his chewing tobacco on the floor of the truck. And the floor, ladies and gentlemen, while he's sitting there. And I remember Adam showing me the floorboard of Deke's truck was almost rotted through.
Oh yeah, you move the carpet out of the way, and it was rotted through. The hinges barely worked because he just spit us just nothing but Copenhagen running down his lips, his face, onto his shirt, but right onto those hinges, just melted them.
Deke would have it both sides of his mouth running down when he would talk to you, and it was all over his tongue.
He wouldn't take a nice hard chew. He would just open the can and kind of pour some in his mouth.
Poured it.
Eventually get some of it into his lip with his tongue.
But just so the myth is squashed, you can chew Copenhagen until you're almost 100. So, anyway, Deke was a classic guy. If you really wanted to talk to him, he had fingernails about a foot long, right?
He was a big man. I think he was about 6'4".
Yes, he was tall and skinny, long fingernails, long fingers, it seemed like. Of course, his fingernails were so long. But he was just a gem to talk to. Really loved him. Anyway, he lived behind Adam. So Adam's in the front with his mom and dad, and then behind Adam is Deke. He lives in a single wide trailer, no pop out, nothing like that, just a real standard trailer. And he would stay back there and not do much with anybody, but we thought, hey, let's get Deke involved on this hunt or on this film. And so Adam, he had a Browning jacket back in the day when Gore-Tex first came out. That was a big deal.
First Gore-Tex jackets.
First, yeah. I mean, if you had Gore-Tex, like I told you on one of my earlier podcasts in the 95 duck hunt, we were usually wearing, I mean, this was, you were usually wearing a PV Ranch and Home or a Big R Ranch and Home plastic camo jacket with insulation on the inside that once it got wet, it felt like 100 pounds. But Adam had this cool Gore-Tex Browning jacket, and we went back and told Deke what we were going to do.
Briefly.
Real briefly. And Adam put this jacket on him and told him, you are the lodge owner of the lodge. Yes, right?
Yeah, he called him Butte Creek Gun Club or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just made something.
Oh, no, I think it was Cherokee Creek Gun
Outfitters.
Club. Yeah, Cherokee Creek. Anyway, it was something to that effect. And Deke, when you would talk to Deke, he would always talk about something else. He would never kind of stay on the subject. And so we kind of had to shake him into say, listen, we're going to knock on the door. And when you open the door, you got to go along with what we're saying.
That was about all of his instructions. That was it.
That was it. Real, no kidding, ladies and
Everything
gentlemen.
else was ad-lib.
And I know the film might take it see differently, but no, it really was. It really was a throw the jacket on him. We gave him a bow and a gun that he had inside his trailer. And so then we told Matt, okay, we're going to do this scene and you got to film it. And we went ahead and had Deke open the door, and Adam would knock on the door, and he opened the door. And he kind of stepped out. The lighting wasn't great at first, but then he came forward and we could see his majestic figure in the doorway. And ladies and gentlemen, he was right on cue. He went along basically with everything Adam was telling him. I mean, he didn't really miss a beat, but at the very end of that first scene, I think he said something to the fact,
Oh, that's when I pulled the gun out and said, hey, is this your gun? He said, oh, yeah. I said, what kind of gun is that? Just trying to get him to play along. He said, well, looks like a shotgun.
Well, I don't know. It's yours, right? Well, yeah, it is, you know.
I think it's a 12 gauge.
So
then we pulls out the bow and you know, we tell him what model it is. You know, the Arizona 7395.
Yeah, that's right.
He goes, I'd like to pull, but it just ain't a register. We had no idea what he was talking about. Can't grip her. She's not a register.
Whatever that meant. But just real quick, Adam was totally correct about saying that this was an actual real hobo. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, he rode trains as a kid from town to town and did things that you would only really read about. I mean, he was
born in 1890s, someplace in there.
Yeah. He was the true deal. Like, he has seen so much by this time that we were always listening to his stories. And like I said, the letters that he would write, I mean, you couldn't tell it came from a guy in a single wide trailer that looked like him. It was really educated. And I don't even know if he went to school.
I doubt he went anything past 6th grade.
Yeah. I mean, it was a literal treasure trove for us as kids to be able to listen to him, because he was real. I mean, it was real that whatever he would say to us, he felt. Then he would drive that truck uptown, and I don't know how many times I would see kids on the back of that truck, because he had a little camper shell on it with a little handle on the top, and I believe you could hang on to it and just stand on the bumper. And they knew that he wasn't going to go out of town or drive very fast, so you would jump on the back, and he wouldn't even know you were there.
You just get a free ride uptown.
That's right.
Save yourself 6 blocks of walking.
So Deke was just the classic old timer.
I sure wish I knew him today. Back then, I don't think we appreciated what he was saying at all. We were,
we were all concerned with what we were doing.
We were just in ourselves, but
yeah.
Sure wish I could gain some knowledge from him now.
That would be worth its weight right there if we could go back and talk to him with our brains nowadays. But anyway, we shot this first scene, and we set it up where Bob and Dave, which I can't remember which one was which.
Yeah, we switched around during the show about 4 times.
Yeah.
We were Bob and Dave, then Bill and Dave, then Bill and Bob.
And Matt is doing a phenomenal job at filming this, and most of the time, ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing a film, the director doesn't talk. But Matt did. And he's got some good lines in there that I can't ever replace for what we did that day. But we got the first scene shot at the hunting lodge. Then we loaded up in Adam's Chevy Love. Now, this was a 2-seater Chevy Love, 2 bucket seats. And this was a 70s Chevy.
It was a 1973 Chevy Love.
73, but this didn't have your gasoline engine in it.
No, back in 1975, my dad replaced that motor with a Nissan forklift diesel motor. And it was all rigged in there to where it put a standard transmission in there, and rigged the clutch where you had to be able to squat at least 225 to push this cable clutch in.
You did.
But your top end speed got phenomenal mileage, but your top end speed was about 58.
Yeah. No, when you went on the highway, you were praying there was no wind. And there wasn't too many people. Well, of course, back then, it was 55, so that wasn't humongously a deal. Now it would be a big problem.
No. You wouldn't drive it on the highway these days.
Is there a reason why he did that with he bought it new?
He bought it new in 73. The motor blew up in 75 or had troubles of some sort, and he was really into diesels and doing conversions. He converted that. He converted that Bronco.
That's right.
A Cummins diesel in there, remember? So yeah, he did a few other Fords. So that's just what Dad did.
So so we're in this diesel Chevy Love, which was unheard of at this time. And remember, back then, what was diesel? 50 cents a gallon? Something like that.
It was cheap. It was cheap.
It was back in the good days, right?
So bucket seats, and in the middle to cover the hump where the transmission sat, you had remember it was an orange and a green pillow in there.
That's right. That's right. You had the pillow, so it was actually a 3-seater, ladies and gentlemen. So we went ahead and loaded up in this truck, and we take off. And back in our heyday, in the 80s, Biggs was a thriving metropolis.
Yeah. Okay.
It had 2 bars. It had a bank. It had a Frosty. It had, a lot of good Emporium, Greens Market. It's 7th and B.
Colonial Pheasant Club.
Yeah, and the 76 gas station. I mean, and another gas station. So we had Pulliams. Yeah. We headed out of town, and we're filming this because we're going out of town, and you'll see a lot of people on the roads when we're going out of town because we had a lot of businesses back then. So we head out to Cherokee, and Cherokee is just past Red Top. You get on Afton Road, and you head out west, and it's a few miles out of town, and we come to Cherokee, and we start our filming adventure. But we're kind of in a problem here because we don't have a jackalope.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to find some jackalopes for the film. And so we went and set out for finding the jackrabbit. But like I told you earlier in the show, the jackrabbit is rather elusive. And we couldn't find one.
However, the cottontail is fairly easy prey.
It's very, very plentiful. And so we settled on the cottontail. But I apologize. I went a little too far. Before we went out to Cherokee, we had to come up with some horns for the jackalope.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they're real, we still had to find some. So we went to our good buddy, Johnny Thompson. And Johnny Thompson has a carport full of horns, right?
Full of horns.
Full.
They're just up on the beams up there, just lined up.
lined up. And so what did we do? We chose a monster.
we had two of them. We had a nice little forking horn, but then we chose about a 28-inch 4x4.
And so we had these horns. So we got the horns. We're set. We take off out of town. We get to the levee that we like on Cherokee, and we drive down, and we got to find us some stunts from stunt doubles for these jackalopes. So, like Adam said, we couldn't find the jackrabbits, so we went ahead and got a couple of cottontail, and it was in season, so don't freak out about that. It was. And we went ahead and put on the horns on the cottontail very secretively, if you don't recall how we did that.
Oh, I don't want to give away all the secrets, but zip ties were involved, and I don't think we had anything to cut the excess zip off, so it was just hanging all over the place.
Were they clear or
work.
black?
They were black.
I think they were black. So luckily the rabbit has a touch of black in it somewhere, but we got these two sets of horns, and we got these two cottontail, and we put them on. I forgot to mention as well, in the back of that Chevy Love was the ultimate hunting rig. This is what all of your UTVs are based off of, was this exact design.
1985 250XS three-wheeler with a canopy I made out of rebar.
Canopy. Ladies and gentlemen, the first UTV ever you will see on the Jackalope Cherokee Creek. I think it's Cherokee Jackalope Hunt or Cherokee Creek. I apologize, I'm not 100% sure. It's got well over 100 views.
In 20 years. I don't know if that's what they call viral. Maybe not.
So we have this rig on the back of our Chevy Love, enough for two people to get underneath the canopy. The canopy is, I think, a wing nut or something.
I had a wing nut on the front of it because it had to pivot. I believe it pivot because it's a three-wheeler. It's not like a four-wheeler. So the steering wheel had to turn. So I had an exact pivot on the axis, and you could wing nut that down and pull it back over so you can get out. But it looked like a little spaceship in the front. I had plexiglass at angles in the front, and the whole top and back was camouflage tarp that I had sewn
ladies and gentlemen, it was a feat of engineering. I will tell you, when you look at it, you'll be like, wow, that's really ingenious. And I got to admit, hats off to you. It was. I mean, it provided everything. Now, if we wrecked, maybe not so much good, but we just didn't do that, luckily. So we take off in our jackalope rig, I want to say, and we make our way, and Matt's filming the whole thing, and then we get over to the meadow where we always like to camp, and we kind of staged it with these two jackalopes that we were in pursuit of. And ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't done with firearms. We were bow hunting these things.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was not, we're not messing around here. We're bow hunting jackalope in their environment. So we were going after them right where they live. So we had these things set up. We get the first one, and you have to do a certain call that Deke showed us before we left his hunting lodge. And I can't even imitate it, but maybe Adam can imitate it somehow.
I don't believe I can. Imagine a 90 or a 6'4", probably 162-pound 90-year-old man waving his hands in the air, screaming as loud as he can because we told him to. And we tried to emulate that out there. It was completely awful. So we knew we had to make this call. So we were out there, and we thought we heard one way off in the distance. So we were like, hey, we need to call him. So there we are.
Yeah.
We jump up and wave our hands in the air. And then we were quiet. We put our ear up, and Matt, behind the camera, he gives us the return call, so we knew
we had
exactly where they were.
We knew we had him, and I'm telling you, Adam is no joking. When he said that, when we told Deke to do this jackalope call, and he did it, I first thought that's a bad idea. I think we killed him because he raised his hands up and yelled like that. And anyway, you have to watch the video. It was something else. But we got a response from the first one, and we pursued it. And then of course, you have to put on your no scent stuff so that they can't smell you. And we ended up getting into range, and we got the first one.
This is all coming from a 16-year-old mind, so
just to back that up.
Don't expect any quality out of what you're.
Although the director was 18.
Almost.
That's all right. We got the first one, and we decided, hey, there's got to be more than one here, right? You at home don't know that as you're watching this, but we feel that there is. So we go and pursue it again, and this time we're across a canyon at Cherokee, which really isn't a canyon, but it's close enough.
Yeah, it's a meadow between two.
It's the same place we would jump Mills's Jeep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, Matt, if you're listening, your Jeep jumped like nothing else. You know that. That Jeep was awesome. It was a CJ7. It was white, stick shift. It was phenomenal. But that's another podcast we'll go into. So we found this other one, and this was the monster. He was over there by a tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Munching on whatever jackalopes eat.
Jackalope food.
Jackalope food. And we had him dead to rights on this one. In fact, we both shot at this one. The camaraderie, I think Matt said, was unlike he's ever seen.
Because we both missed.
We both missed. We both missed a standing still jackalope.
So we had to separate. You had to go to one
That's
side
right.
of the canyon, and I came on the other. And then that's when we had to do some hand signals.
That's right. We did hand signals. That's right. Critical when you're bow hunting. You can't yell out, hey, it's 30 yards. No, you got to do hand signals. And unfortunately on a podcast, I can't show you what that is. But you can kind of think that when I have both of my hands up and spread, my fingers anyway, that means 100 yards, right? Duh. Right? 100 yards, 10 yards, I don't know. What is it? So we had our hand signals down, and anyway, we closed the gap. We were able to seal the deal, and here we go. We have 2 Cherokee jackalopes in our possession that, to my knowledge, nobody else has ever done.
No, absolutely not.
Not one person have I ever met that has got one of these elusive creatures, but I've seen them mounted all over the place, and I always ask the owner, where'd you get that? And he just gives me I can't tell you that. So, but I'm telling you, we got 2. So we loaded up in that Chevy Love with that
Deke Mobile,
first UTV ever on the market, and we headed our way back to Cherokee Hunting Lodge to meet Deke, because Deke knew we had been out. He was getting stuff ready for us to return, and so we pull in there. You may not know how this works in video, but we stopped the video and we went over to him, and Adam donned the coat on him again, because that was his coat, wasn't Adam's coat. Even though you saw it in the film, we were just borrowing it, but we had to give it back.
Yeah.
And he put the coat on him, and we started the tape rolling again with Adam knocking on the door. I haven't watched the video in a while, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he said something like, what the hell are you boys doing, or something?
He goes, by God, you did get something. I've seen everything now.
Yeah. We showed him the 2 jackalopes with the horns on them, and he held them in his hand, and he said something that I got to watch the video again. It was really something funny that I just think he said, my God, you did get something here. I can't believe it, So we start talking to him more, and he starts telling us more stories about things that don't even pertain to what we're talking about. And Deke just was that kind of guy. He went from what we told him, but he had a short span there, and then he kind of would go on something else, and Adam would have to steer him back. And that was the best video that we've ever shot, and the only one we've ever shot.
That's why it was the best. I remember he started talking about, he goes, yeah, that's my profession. I had a crossbreed, a jackalope,
Yes.
and an elk, and he went off, and he came up with some really good stories.
He did. He was right. I mean, you couldn't have cued it any better for him. We didn't have to write a script or anything, though you might think there was a script written. There wasn't.
It was all one take.
It was all one take.
Zero edit.
Zero edit. Cheap on the production. Now you can go in and take a video and you can chop it up and add this and that. Well, we didn't have that back then. We had to go off of what we had on film. So it was really, like you said, a one-take deal.
Mm-hmm.
There was no other way to describe it. But that was, like I said, you say 87, 86?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Like I said, height of Rambo. I remember when we graduated from 8th grade, your dad took us to watch Rambo.
I think that's the only movie he ever has seen in the movie theater.
I remember that to this day. We went.
Peachtree Mall.
Yeah, and I don't know if we even watched graduation for 8th graders or what we were doing. I think we were 7th grade, and we took off and we went and watched Rambo. This is another podcast, but we were so into Rambo back then. We even had a Rambo game out at a bridge that we call Rambo.
Oh, that was phenomenal.
Oh, phenomenal.
That was all summer long, every summer.
Every summer.
I had a swimming pool at my house, never used it once. We'd go a mile out of town and just swim in the ditch.
That's
and
right.
play Rambo.
And play Rambo. And Rambo is really not that complicated.
No.
It's basically tag.
You could call it that. And don't oversimplify it. But yeah, it's tag. You just had to tag them in the shorts.
Tag him in the shorts, yeah.
And that's underwater usually. It's
Yep.
with fast-moving water in the ditch with a bridge where you had all the structural components.
That's right.
We'd hold on to, and you hold your breath, and probably not all that safe.
Did we ever get worried about getting sucked into a
No.
side vent? No, but we probably should have. But hey, we're invincible at that point, right?
Oh yeah.
I remember when we went out there one time, and this guy says, I don't even know who the guy was. He says, hey, I'm going back into town. You guys want to ride? I'm like, we got our bikes. He goes, well, just tie a rope onto the bumper. So I did.
Brilliant.
That was not a good idea, ladies and gentlemen, because I tied that rope to my handlebars. Well, you know as well as I do, when you're going 25 in a car, it's slower than crap. When you're going 25 on a bike, it feels like you're doing 90.
Especially the Huffies we used to drive.
and I'm telling this guy, slow down, I'm gonna die. And he just couldn't hear us or whatever. But luckily he did right before my wheel started really vibrating, and I'm like, oh, this is not going well.
Right before the high-speed wobble crash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember off the Rambo Bridge, we used to throw a rope out and tie a piece of plywood to it, and that was our ski.
That's
You
it.
could just stand on that piece of plywood, and the water would go under you at, I don't know, 5 to 8 miles an hour, so you would just ski in one spot.
And if you're looking for Rambo Bridge, it's on Rio Bonito Road on the east side of the highway. And it's the only bridge on Rio Bonito on the east side of the highway, really, that has water running through it.
There would be between 25 and 30 kids out there every day.
Every
during
day.
the summer.
Every day, ladies and gentlemen, every day, playing, burning calories.
Oh gosh, yeah. I remember out there on the north side of the bridge, there was a bunch of berry vines.
Yeah.
So we'd go in those berry vines, and in certain times of the year, the berries were there. So we'd pick a bunch and we'd eat them.
Oh,
That'd
yeah.
be great. But then we'd eat them, and we'd go up on the bridge, and you smash them on you, and it looks like blood. So we'd put them all over our face and our chest and stuff, and pretend like we were fighting when cars would go by, and make people stop and say, "What? You can't stop that!" And we'd laugh and dive in the water.
People would have to drive over that bridge really slow because, like you said, there were always a lot of people standing around. That was the 80s, right? We just past Rambo, not very far away, within a couple hundred yards was a tower to monitor the nuclear activity that they put up out there. And that was a huge deal because we were right in the Cold War at that time. A lot of cool things happened then, but we wrapped up that Jackalope movie that day, and we had it on that Super 8 or whatever you call that thing, 8mm, forever. And then finally, we transferred it to a DVD. My buddy who kind of knew I'm actually Amy's cousin who kind of knew a little bit about YouTube, I had him put it on there, hoping it would go viral, hoping it would draw Steven Spielberg maybe in.
It was close. And earlier when I said viral with 100 views, I think 62 of those were Travis, and about 30 of them were mine. So we truly got about 10 views.
That's right. But if you watch it, do not watch 2 first. You have to watch 1. It's a 2-parter. You don't want to ruin the end. You don't want to see the, So watch it that way. This show, Adam and I both agreed, is dedicated to Matt Brown. He passed away recently, and we miss him greatly. And he was a phenomenal friend. We had good times together. We might even do a podcast on his first buck hunt because that was really cool. And Matt was not really a buck hunter, but we kind of talked him into doing it.
Yeah, he went once.
One time.
That was probably about 92 or so.
Yeah.
Probably 92.
I think so. And he was successful. The first day.
Well, that was an
X5C back then, now X4.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time with Matt. So we've had a lot of good fun times with him and miss him, and we'll miss him greatly. Love his family and appreciate everything that they have done for us over the years. And his dad was one of our football coaches.
Football coach, wrestling coach, phenomenal guy. His mom was our principal.
That's right.
What a sweet lady.
That's right.
Art and Levon. His brother, Marcus, professional water skier. Whole family was professional skiers.
Yeah, and Marcus, professional now drone videographer.
Yeah.
And does a lot of work with that, which I'm super into. I don't do enough of it, but I'd like to do more. But we just want to dedicate this show to them and know that we're thinking of them. And that we are, super glad you could listen today. Adam, you got anything else to add?
Well, no, I appreciate you inviting me over, and I can kind of see what this is all about. I look forward to doing more of these.
Yeah.
With you. I don't talk very much, but if you throw a question, I'll have an answer.
Hey, I love it when you're here, and I appreciate you coming over. And I just want to thank you again for listening to Front Row Chaos. Remember, you can find this podcast on any of the major carriers now. And all you have to do, if you have an iPhone, is just click on the little purple icon that says podcast and then search Front Row Chaos. There will be, and you can listen to us anytime, and we appreciate you, and have a blessed and safe day. Thanks for listening.